Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor YouTube Live. My name is Brandon Drum. I'm here with Parker Thune, and this is the abridged version of the YouTube Live. We understand that 90% of the fan base for Oklahoma Sooners are either a Mavs or a Thunder fan. So we're excluding Parker Thune, who is from Nebraska.
90% is a hefty figure.
Is it though?
Yes, very.
Okay. How about 75%?
Still probably a little on the.
I think you're misconstruing how big of a deal the OKC Thunder are in Oklahoma. Now, I get the whole Mavs thing in Dallas because there's a lot of transplants, and I get there's a lot of transplants in Oklahoma now. But a lot of people watching are fans of both. So we're going to have an abridged version of this live. Thunder up. Sorry, Mavs fans. Hope you guys lose tonight. But there's a lot to talk about, Parker. We got some defensive tackle, transfer portal stuff. We have some recruiting talk that we can do, baseball, softball, lots to discuss, and we'll take your questions as well as we go through this live today. So, do we have to pay any bills today? Do we know about this?
We do not. We do not. We
Ooh.
are taken care of for the week. So,
Gotcha.
unlike
So,
sellout crowd, we are still afloat.
wouldn't have gone there. Um,
By the way, to be clear, I'm glad the discourse on sellout crowd on social media this evening is what it should be, which is sympathy for a lot of those
yes.
helpless folks that lost their jobs in the crossfire, and plenty of deserved criticism directed at the suits that were behind it all that seem to have conned a lot of people.
Yes, yeah. From my understanding, the guy that started it up is a POS.
Yeah, they're cooking him. They're cooking him on the Twitterverse.
Yes, they are. Yeah, Todd Lisenbees was probably one of the best. Like he went just ham on everybody, and I think I think this is a whole conversation we need to have off air though.
Oh
So
boy. And there will
yeah,
be, I imagine this will be a topic of conversation for months to come, because by the sounds of things, there's going to be a lot of legal proceedings in the aftermath of all of this. So,
yep. Anyways, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about some defensive tackle transfer stuff. Talked to some sources last night. And if you watch the podcast, we discussed, if you're on OU Insider, we really discussed a little bit more about what was going on. But Oklahoma is they're looking at several guys that are close to graduating in May and kind of working on being able to make that transfer as a grad transfer after things close down. That's one thing. The other thing is that Oklahoma has pinpointed Aiden Hutchinson out of
Huntington, Aiden
Huntington. Why
Huntington.
do I do that every time? Every time. I wish it was Aiden Hutchinson. I swear to God, OU fans, that would be
That would be a game changer.
amazing. Yes. Anyways, Aiden Huntington. And he had 8.5 sacks for the University of Louisiana Monroe last year. I think he had 16 tackles for loss. Is that off the top of my head correct?
16 tackles for loss. Yes, sir.
Dude can ball. He's not very big at 6'1", 6'2", 280 pounds. But he is more in the line of, as Parker put it, kind of a Lacey replacement, a hybrid guy, kind of like a Jalen Redmond that can play the 5, the 4-eye, or slide in and play the 3 when needed. Very versatile, very athletic. I believe he has a ridiculous vert from what I read. Like his metrics are stupid, and that's probably why he's dominating G5, to be honest. And so Oklahoma's pinpointed him to fill in the position that Jermaine Lole left.
And the
And
people that have
but
beef about the potential addition of Aiden Huntington are the only people that are upset that this is the guy that Oklahoma's targeted are the people who are determined to be upset because those exact same people will completely disregard the 16 tackles for loss and the 8.5 sacks, and they'll go, well, he's 6'1", 280. And then with a guy like Jermaine Lole, for instance, their rhetoric is always, well, okay, sure, he's 6'3", 315 pounds, but what has he done? So some people you just can't please.
yeah.
Some people aren't going to be satisfied regardless of who the addition is for Oklahoma on the defensive line. If it's Aiden Huntington, that's a really good pull
Oh
by
my
Brent
God.
Venables and Todd Bates. That to like Aiden Huntington to me is superior, and I might argue significantly so to Jermaine Lole in terms of the value that he brings to the table.
Ooh, Texas fans gonna be hot with that one. That one,
Well, that's fine.
Spencer, go ahead and cut that and put that in social.
Oh, I'll have Ian
Yes, let's
Boyd
do
quote
it.
tweeting me till the cows come home.
Oh my God. Not only would you have Missouri fans hating you, but Texas fans. Um, I I don't want to go that far, but what I will say is this: if you're getting a player of that magnitude as a second or third rotation guy, people are like, we've had a couple of people on the board say, well, the SEC, this isn't what you do when you're going. No, hell yes, it is what you do when you're going to the SEC. If you have an 8.5 sack guy, I don't care if it's G5, 8.5 sacks as a backup or third rotation, or even competing for the starting job or 1A, 1B. What are you griping about? That find an OU defensive lineman that had those type of numbers in the last since since Benito left and since Ronnie Perkins left.
Correct. Correct. The last time anybody on the OU
Or
roster
Isaiah
had
Thomas.
8.5 sacks was 2020 when I
In four
believe both
years.
Benito and Isaiah Thomas hit that threshold. For in the four, well, I guess 3 seasons
Three
since. In the
seasons.
three
Yeah, those 4
seasons
years.
since, nobody has matched it. And so obviously, if Aiden Huntington winds up a Sooner, he's not going to have 8.5 sacks this year.
No, he's
But
not.
if, especially from the defensive tackle position, he can get you 3.
Yep.
Oh yeah, you look back at the end of the year, and it is going to be like it's a 1 year rental if you get Aiden Huntington.
Yep.
He's just got 1 year left. But if you get 3 sacks out of that dude and some key rotational snaps, you will look back on that addition at year's end and go, that was well worth the investment.
Yep. Oh my goodness. I just I like what Oklahoma's doing on the defensive line. I just do. I think they brought in Todd Bates for this very reason, to transform the defensive line, because it was crap when he showed up. And yeah, when he first showed up, he took some hits. I mean, losing obviously you know, Gabriel Brown didn't. You lost him. You lost Derek Moore, right? You lost on the fact that Oklahoma was probably going to end up with a 5-star edge rusher who is now playing for his father's alma mater at Florida State. But like, you had all those pieces, but in the long run, what you brought Todd Bates in to do was do exactly what he's doing. And that is brick by brick, piece by piece, just continue to build the depth and the talent at that defensive tackle position. And that is what's happening. I think you look at that Grayson Halton pickup from Oregon, the flip from Oregon back in 2022. And on its face, it didn't look like that big of a deal. But when you look at it now and you see what Grayson Halton did during the spring game, you hear all the buzz about Grayson Halton, and you see the plays that he made in 22 and 23. He had flashes. You could see what was potentially to come if he kept working at it. I think that was kind of the beginning of, okay, you're going to play ball with some people. Then you roll into 23, and yeah, he took some hits because of NIL and the fact that some people's parents wanted them at A&M. Like there's nothing much you could do about that, right? Okay, so you miss out there. But in 24, you really started to see the 2 year relationships that built up. And now you're starting to see that come to fruition. The David Stones, the Jaden Jackson, and when you uh, obviously the Dominic Williams, the we already said Grayson Halton, the Nigel Smiths, he tag team that with Chavis, and um, you really feel good about, and I would even throw Jacob Lacey in that equation because he committed to Oklahoma without even taking an official visit. Like that was big. And so, and yeah, he's not on the team anymore. Blood clots, horrible for him. But he still was a good player. And then you got Dejoun Terry. I think Dejoun Terry probably was the very first sign of okay, things are starting to move in a different direction for Oklahoma. Because remember, Dejoun Terry, nobody had OU on the list of places he was going to land. It was Ole Miss, Mississippi State, I believe LSU and Auburn. Like that's what he was going to get closer to home because his mom was sick, right? And the next thing you know, he's in Norman. He never leaves, never leaves. So you got to give it up to Todd Bates there. Let let's talk about some linebacker recruiting. We talked about it on the podcast, but
Yeah.
let's dive in there. I'll let you just expound on 2025
Well,
linebacker recruiting.
well, Dawson Merritt has canceled his official visit to Oklahoma, which I wish I'd gone up to Kansas City 3 days later than I did, because when I went up there on Saturday, that visit was still on.
You're
And
just bad luck, Parker.
I guess, man, I guess. But and it's something that I think we've talked about on a couple of podcasts previously. It really does seem like Oklahoma's shifting their focus away from the KC metro area. And boy, would they have loved to have Dawson Merritt. Let's not get that twisted. It is an unfortunate turn of events and an unexpected one that he's no longer going to OV to Oklahoma in late June, especially because that's been such a trendy recruitment in the sense that it feels like whoever has hosted him most recently has had the buzz. And so if you got the last visit with a kid like that, that's pretty much exactly where you wanted to be. But nonetheless, he's not going to visit Oklahoma. And again, as I mentioned, it definitely feels, if you look at who's been offered and who hasn't, like Oklahoma's making an effort to pull back from the Kansas City area,
Mm-hmm.
which to a certain extent is understandable given the way that they've been burned up there time and again the last year or so. And it's been kind of like, it hasn't been all bad. PJ came from North Kansas City, so uh, it hasn't been a complete swing and a miss for Oklahoma in that vicinity. But naturally, I think when you look at it and you evaluate the results you have gotten versus the results that you might have expected, it hasn't lived up to expectations. And as you shift to the SEC, you don't necessarily have to be firmly planted in Kansas City. Is it a metro area that is going to yield some blue chippers every single year? Yeah, but by the same token, so is somewhere like Louisiana, right, where the Sooners made several offers this
It,
past week.
a
Um,
question. I want to dive into that. Do you feel like that is because of Missouri in the NIL there, and then I guess in
I
particular
certainly think that's part of it. I certainly
Nebraska
think that's
is
part of it.
also starting to like gain some more their foothold that they used to have there. Is that kind of how you feel is the two reasons? I don't know because I don't cover it the way you do up there.
Yeah, I think certainly there's a great deal of it that has to do with Missouri, which, if you're in Oklahoma's shoes, why would you take the chance on somebody, especially from the Missouri side, that, as we learned with Williams Winery, can start cashing NIL checks the second that they're committed to the in-state school? Why would you invest so much time and effort and sink so much resources into recruiting a kid from the Missouri side of Kansas City when you know that Eli Drinkwitz and his staff, it really comes down to it and they got a hankering to make it happen, they can go make that dude an offer he can't refuse.
I do have a question about that.
What's that?
The second they committed, that is a very vague. It's a very vague wording in the world of law and contractual obligations
Uh-huh.
because you could be silented. You could pretend to be silented and take
Yeah.
money. You could pay them. And how could they prove that you weren't committed at that? How could any NCAA delegator or enforcer prove that you weren't committed at the time that they paid you to commit?
Yeah. Well,
Do you see where I'm
and
coming from there?
certainly, certainly. And it sucks that Dawson Merritt has now decided he's going to be either a Cornhusker or head down to Tuscaloosa to play for the Crimson Tide, but it makes backing out of Kansas City that much easier now.
Yeah.
I do think Oklahoma, if only for the head ball coach's sake, is going to maintain a presence in Wichita. And obviously, Wichita is not the hotbed that Kansas City is, but you'll get a good player or two, or even a handful, pretty much
Yep.
every single recruiting cycle. The Sooners are after a 3-star 2026 edge rusher from Wichita and Hunter Higgins, who's going to camp with Oklahoma here in the next few weeks. I think they look really good right now for him, and he could be one of the early commits in the 2026 class for
Yeah.
OU. But save for that occasional Wichita kid, and then who knows? You may get somebody from up in Salina, Brent Venables' hometown, that pops off, or you may have a Lincoln Cure out there in the western part of the state that you feel the need to make a run at. But I it really does feel to me like Oklahoma's steadily de-emphasizing Kansas City as a major focus of their recruiting efforts. And you're kind of seeing the same thing with the state of Nebraska as well, where Oklahoma got commits and got signees in two straight cycles in 2022 and 2023 with Caden Helms and Gabe McIntyre.
I don't know. I don't know if I like what they're doing there. It feels to me that if you're going to cast a net out, I think you need to continue that net within an 8-hour radius around Norman. And there's plenty of 5 stars in that 8-hour radius, by the way. So, and 4 stars. So, I'll let you even dive into the basketball. Obviously Oklahoma got another commit today, um, from Jeffrey Nwankwo. Is that how you say
That
it?
is correct.
Boom! I did it.
Well,
Hey, come on,
reasonably
man.
correct. Reasonably correct.
Oh, way
What's
to piss in
interesting
my
is, and
Cheerios, bro.
this guy's Putnam City North alumnus who originally went down to Tulane to play college football. He spent a year there as a wide receiver, then decided, nope, hooping is where it's at for me. So he heads back to Cali County Community College up in Arkansas City, Kansas. I have been told it is Arkansas, not Arkansas. Um, but obviously
Yes, it is
becomes
Arkansas. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, but obviously becomes a highly coveted JUCO commodity up there and signed with Cal. Decided to back out of his NLI. He was on campus with Oklahoma the next day, and boom, here we are 2 days later. And he is the final piece of the puzzle for Porter Moser and his staff as they get ready for the 24-25 season. My big issue, my big question mark is, yes, you got the Muhammad Wagyu kid from Alabama yesterday. He got commits in back-to-back days between Wagyu and Jeff Wonkwo, but
Mm-hmm.
it
Well,
feels like the exact same team in many ways. It feels like the exact same team that Oklahoma has had each of Porter Moser's first 3 years structurally. And what I mean by that is you have a lot of really intriguing backcourt pieces. You have a lot of guards that bring something to the table, something different. They each kind of have their niche within the scheme, and they each provide some value. And it's kind of, it'll be a meritocracy as to who sees the floor the most among those guys. But then you turn your focus to the front court, and there's just not a lot there. There's
yeah.
not. Like, you're counting on a big, big leap from Luke
Really
Northweather,
athletic
or
backcourt, really athletic wings, just plotters for front court guys. Out. So how did Wag, how do you say that?
Wagyu. That's not
Wagyu.
actually how you say it. That's how I insist on saying
When
it.
I first saw his name, the very first time, all I could think of was steak. I'm not even
Dang
gonna
right.
lie. So, anyway, how do you say his name? Say it again, please.
Who, Jeff Wankwell?
No, one quote. No.
Oh, Muhammad Wagyu.
So it is Wagyu. Okay.
No, it's not. It's Wagi.
Wagi. Okay. Dude, don't screw me up like that. Okay. Wagi is
I'm gonna get
athletic.
it
He's super.
embedded in your head.
Yeah, you are now. And I'm going to end up looking like a fool as usual. Wagi is super athletic. He is a great lob presence. He's a great defender. He's a good rebounder. If they can somehow tweak his low post game to give him a hook, give him a 15-footer, 10 to 15-footer, 12-footer, I don't care. Something to extend his offensive presence. Now you're cooking a little bit, but I just don't know if he has it in him. He also has to stay healthy, which has been a big issue for him throughout his college career. If you guys have Donald Abla, you are from Mena, Arkansas. Some of my wife's family is from that area, and I bet you know them. So, anyways, um, if you guys have some questions, go ahead and ask. Let's talk. What? Let's talk baseball, Parker.
Ooh, baseball. Big
Yeah,
time.
Big 12 champs. They deserve all the recognition. We talked about them on the podcast. They're the number. Are they the number 10 seed? Correct. In their
They're projected as the number 10.
projected.
We won't know for
Projected.
sure until they get to the other side of this weekend series with Cincinnati.
Gotcha. Well, they're the number 12 team in the country. And I just, for the life of me, feel as if, will it be a disappointment if they don't make it to Omaha?
I think it will. Yes. Um,
Expound for those
well, I
that
just,
are going to just now start paying attention to them.
yeah. I mean, this team is deep. They're talented.
Hmm.
They're an offensive machine, and they've got good pitching, significantly better pitching than they did 2 years ago when they made a run all the way to the CWS Championship Series in Omaha and ultimately lost to Ole Miss. The difference in pitching depth is stark. And you can argue, okay, maybe they don't have like that electric shutdown arm where you can toss him out there and give you key innings, key outs. He can be your stopper in Omaha. And that's the kind of guy you need. Oh, you had one in Trevin Michael in 2022, all the way up until that game 2 against Ole Miss, where he just didn't have it that day, and there was nobody else to turn to. But the Sooners have 8 pitchers on this staff, 6 of them relievers, with an ERA under 5. They had 3 such pitchers in 2022. So Skip Johnson, pitching guru that he is, has cobbled together a rotation and a bullpen that has proven to be okay, maybe not dominant, but moderately effective, not
Hmm.
going to lose you games. And when your offense is as balanced and as explosive as Oklahoma is, as an offensive team, they have 4 different players right now that are north of 1,000 in the OPS department. Again, you want to compare that to 2022, one such player that year, and it was Peyton Graham. So the offense has scored 10 plus runs, double digit runs in 10 of their last 20 games. They've won 16 of their past 20. They're one of the hottest teams in the country right now, indisputably. And they're on track to host a regional. They may end up
Yep.
hosting a super regional if they hold serve. So getting to Omaha is hard. You know, I mentioned this on the podcast. The way that the postseason is structured in college baseball, it should not be taken for granted that you're going to get there and crack the final 8, the elite 8, as it were, that get to go to Omaha and play for a College World Series title. But if the Sooners can get through regionals and super regionals, if they can get to Omaha, if they can be one of those final 8 teams standing, man, I think it's going to be really difficult to pick against that team in Omaha if they get there, because they are so deep with solid pitchers and because the offense can come from anywhere. It's not on the shoulders of one guy like it kind of was with Peyton Graham in 2022. Pretty much everybody in that lineup, 1 through 9, is capable of just getting on base,
Yeah.
whether that comes via walk or slapping a hit through the infield. They got 7 guys with 15 plus extra base hits as well. So there's power all throughout that lineup.
Hey, Randy Hare.
There's no conspicuous weakness. There was in 2022. Like I said, it
Mhm.
was the bullpen depth. You can't really, I guess maybe if you're looking for an Achilles heel with this team, what you could cite is the reality that they don't really have a third starter right now. It
Yeah.
is Braden Davis and it is Kyson Witherspoon. And beyond that, you kind of just try. Skip's been trying to figure it out all year. Jamie Hitt hasn't found his groove. Brendan Girton has been up and down. There have been a couple other guys here and there that have gotten spot starts, but you're really counting on those two guys, Witherspoon and Davis, being able to put you in the position you need to be in to get through regionals and super regionals. Because if at any point you have to lean on a third starter, shoot, it might just be it might be a bullpen game at that point because
Right.
I don't know if there's anybody else right now that you can be confident in to give you 6 solid innings and turn things over to the relievers.
So, Randy Harris, the quote, just now paying attention equals the OU insider staff. You didn't just hear that. Um, you don't have that much knowledge about everything if you're just now paying attention. So, we've been paying attention to baseball.
Yeah, well,
We
that's the
haven't.
thing too, is like nobody's this team isn't going to sneak up on anybody this
Yeah.
year, which again is something that we discussed in the podcast in 2022. Shoot, I remember being legitimately shocked and amazed when the Blacksburg Regional rolled around on Sunday and Oklahoma knocked off Virginia Tech in game 3, and suddenly they were going to Omaha.
Yep.
I did not foresee that. A lot of people didn't foresee that.
No, they were up
They,
and down that year. Oh, the whole year.
yeah,
But
but
they caught fire though during that Big 12 tournament. That was kind of where it was like, whoa, who's this team?
yeah,
But yeah.
but this year they have been exceptional from start to finish. They've only been swept once all year, and it was at the hands of Lamar. And at the time, there were a few folks that said, Lamar, like, what are you doing getting swept by Lamar? That's garbage. Is OU really a good baseball team in 2024? Well, turns out Lamar, that's not a half bad baseball program.
No.
And they actually, as of last check, they lead the nation in staff ERA. So, hey, they have the best pitching staff in the country.
Yeah. Virgil Walker, appreciate you as always. Parker is truly amazing. Parker Thune is truly amazing. And Brandon, you are too. You are equally remarkable, my friend. I rely on both of you for all my OU Insider updates. Keep up the excellent work, gentlemen. Virgil, you keep up the excellent work. We really appreciate your loyalty to OU Insider. Um, anyways, so let I I want to talk about softball just as much. Again, I talked about it on the podcast. I'm not a, I just for the life of me, considering the fact that Texas beat Oklahoma twice, once of them by 1 run, mind you, in Austin, right? And then Oklahoma won the third one. But one of those was a controversial play. Oklahoma could have tied it up and or won because of it. They had gotten hot with the bats at that point. It was a big play. Obviously, they said that there was runner interference with the catcher. There wasn't catcher interference in the baseline because the ball moved the catcher into the baseline at that point. But then Oklahoma plays them in the Big 12 championship game and absolutely shellacks them 6-1. Oklahoma has now won the Big 12, I don't know how many years in a row. And yet they give Texas the number 1 seed because they have a few more I think it was top 30 wins or something like that, RPI wins over Oklahoma. Whatever happened to you give them, if they're of equal status or near equal status, you give them, and it doesn't matter. I know you're splitting hairs 1 and 2, but I think the principle of the fact is that Oklahoma has proven to be the top dog over the last decade, winning what 6 of the last 10 national titles, and you're not going to give them the benefit of the doubt as number 1. Like they just beat the team you put as number 1, Parker. Didn't beat them, owned them. And with Kelly Maxwell getting her arm seems like on track, with the bats finally kick starting into they don't look like they're just waiting on to walk right anymore. They
Yeah.
look like they're actually being aggressive at the plate, and I think that was a big hindrance to this team this year. So, um, do you still think Oklahoma wins the national title in softball? Is it kind
I mean,
of
if
they're
you're
going to
asking me to,
win until you prove me otherwise type deal?
yeah, I mean, if you're going to ask me to take Oklahoma to the field, I'm taking Oklahoma until they lose.
Agreed.
I mean, I I feel much safer betting on Patty Gasso than against Patty Gasso at this point. So, yes, I think they're still the favorite to win the national title. I think most anybody with their head screwed on straight would acknowledge that they're the favorite. Do they win it all? That's to be determined. Only time will tell. But
Yeah.
they're definitely the team that has the target on their back as we enter
Yeah.
postseason play.
Agreed.
Um, by the way, to close the loop on linebacker recruiting from
Go ahead.
earlier,
Yep.
I did mention this on OU Insider, but it's out there publicly, so I don't mind talking about it out here in the open. Uh, Oklahoma's going to get an official visit from four-star linebacker Zadrius Rainey Sale next month.
That's big.
He is a guy that the Sooners just offered over the weekend, so this has moved quickly. He was committed to Washington for all of 4 days because he committed right before Kalen DeBoer left. And so DeVore leaves, and obviously, things change. Things change
Mm,
quickly, and he reopened his recruitment at that point. He's got a good, healthy slate of official visits. It's not the type of deal where the Oklahoma offer is the moon compared to everybody else in the picture, but certainly somebody that is worth keeping an eye on moving forward. Him as well as Mark Iannaccio from California, another four-star linebacker in the 2025 class that Oklahoma just offered. And the
mm,
reason why that one's particularly notable is because he was at the spring game in April. So he's already visited Oklahoma. He's been on campus. He's seen it all. Now he's got the offer. It remains to be seen whether he and the OU staff will truly gel as he's now being officially recruited by the Sooners. But Zadrius Rainey Sale and Mark Iannaccio are two names definitely to be mindful and cognizant of moving forward as the Sooners look to find a second linebacker to tack onto their current class, which right now consists solely of Marcus
Marcus
James. They're
James.
still talking to Christian Jones, by the way. They're still talking to him. He doesn't have an official visit set or anything. I don't really get the sense they're pushing all that terribly hard for him. But worth filing his name away just in case.
I I think it's going to be very interesting to see how Oklahoma closes out the safety stuff as well, and we talked about that on the podcast. Um, I I'm starting to lean towards Oklahoma actually getting an official visit from Jonah Williams. So let's just but temper your expectations there a little bit. That thing's not over, and I still think they lead from Mario Robinson. On the flip side, um, Quincy Porter is visiting Alabama, four-star wide receiver out of New Jersey, the number one player in New Jersey. He's visiting Alabama this weekend. Oklahoma tends to feel pretty good about him, Parker.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that recruitment a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, Emmett Jones is a magician, as
Yep.
we've seen time and again, and it feels like the rabbit that he's getting ready to pull out of the hat here in the 2025 cycle might just be Quincy Porter. OU will have him on campus for the Champion Barbecue. Really, really enjoyed his OU visit. We did an interview with him over at OUinsider.com after he visited in March. Really enjoyed his time. OU's in the top six. Shoot, I would put them in the top 2 or 3 right now for Quincy
Yeah.
Porter. And I think an argument can be made that OU leads. Now, I don't feel like at this point in the process, the kid is settled on any particular school. That's what OV season is
Yeah.
for. But make no mistake, OU's in real good with Quincy Porter, and they should be able to maintain a constant presence at the very top of that process from now until whenever he ends up locking in his commitment.
All right. Well, we said we were going to cut this thing short today. The game's going on.
Oh, you don't want to talk about Floyd Boucard?
Go ahead, talk about him. What
I
else do
roped
we
you
want to talk?
back in.
You
Just when you
did.
thought you were out, pulled you back in. I mean, Nothing really changed on Floyd Boucard.
No, I
There's
know.
still
Like we
some
discussed this on the podcast.
there's still some steady confidence on the OU side.
There
So
is.
see, he gets into town for his OV a week earlier than Cole Breeler and Christian Evans. So that'll be something of which to be mindful. Although, as I've said before, I'll bet you Christian Evans is committed before official visit season rolls around. And I like Oklahoma there.
Agreed. All right. We're done there. All right. To try to let you all go back to watching the game and myself watching the game because I'm a big Thunder fan. We appreciate you all joining us. I know this was kind of an abridged version of the live, but with the game going on and it being such a big deal throughout the fan base, we decided we were going to cut it short. But there is still a lot of information on OU Insider VIP. I think we both have posted stuff in the last 24 hours. A lot of recruiting, a lot of VIP notes as far as transfer portal, a lot of questions. I did the class predictions of who I believe is going to end up in the OU 25 class. That was posted in the last 24 hours. So there's a lot going on OU Insider VIP. Baseball, softball being covered by Jesse, Brian, Blake. Obviously, Parker and I have got the recruiting and transfer portal for football going on, and then Brody has been he can finally rest now that the roster is filled for OU. And he tweeted that earlier today, which is kind of funny. But nobody covers it the way that Brody Lusk covers it on OU Insider. If you want to know before everybody else, that's the dude. He stays in front and on top of everything as far as OU basketball recruiting goes. So go give us a try, $9.95 a month or $99.95 for the whole year. We've got a lot going on. The camp season starting up, spring football. Um, Obviously, a couple of All-American stuff going on. The Rivals 5-star camp. Obviously, SEC Media Day. So if you want to be on top of all that, know what's going on with OU off season as well, OU Insider VIP is where it's at. Also, subscribe to this channel. We are over 15,000. We're trying to reach 17,000 before the start of the season because you guys are such awesome OU fans. We hope that you guys join us on that ride by subscribing to get all the content: football, basketball, baseball, softball, recruiting. The Barry and Mac show is now on this as well. So Damian Mackey, former OU wide receiver, national champion, he has a show, obviously, with Barry, and it's just a big deal. It's an awesome podcast, a lot of information. They cover it from a different angle. You guys will like it. So make sure you subscribe for all that content right here on the OU Insider YouTube channel. All right. For Parker Thune, for Spencer Forsythe, my name is Brandon Drum. You guys have a blessed night.